Welcome back, and I'm going to continue talking about refuge. As I said, sometimes when we get the opportunity to do a longer presentation, like I'll be able to do this next Thursday, it really plunges us into looking at these topics that we engage all the time, and I have to say, in a pretty surface way. And when we have more time, then we really get to look deeper and go, wow, there's so much about this to be learned and so much I don't know. So last time I talked on BBC, I just want to do a 2-minute review. We looked at the meaning of refuge, which is to protect or shelter us from danger or hardship. And then we looked at some material from Geshe Sopa about what those dangers and hardships are. Refuge is a source of help, relief, or comfort in times of trouble. So what are the times of trouble? It's now. And especially when we're not thinking we're in times of trouble. As I've been thinking more about this, it's as though I started thinking about the word refugees. And refugees are very smart because they leave the burning building or the burning country or, you know, the place where they cannot stay anymore because of the danger. But those of us with these samsaric, ignorant minds, you know, with afflictions and obscurations, we don't tend to leave. We kind of like it. And this is from these habits from so long, and especially the sufferings of these, as Venerable Children talks about them, low-level pleasures, you know. Oh, I start to feel the suffering, I'll just go eat some cookies, or I start to feel the suffering, I'll go read another novel. I'm starting to feel the suffering, I'll go to a movie, I'll call my friend, I'll go on a drive. We just constantly distract ourselves from this reality. The problem is the building is burning and we are in it, and we can distract all we want, but at some point, as we've been also looking at, and Venerable Samten presented so well on Thursday night teachings, and if you weren't with us, please go listen. You'll get a great refresher on death. And that's the burning building, so-called, is our death is absolutely inevitable, absolutely certain, and time of death we don't know. So this is what we're taking refuge from, is this mind that doesn't know reality, that refuge from our ignorance, from our afflictions, from our obscurations, and from the results of this. So moving along, though, I said I would begin to talk about what are we taking refuge in, and again, in my arrogance and ignorance, I thought, oh, I'll just do the 3 jewels and da-da-da. And I started in on just the Buddha, and of course, you know, we could have a pile of books this high on the qualities of the Buddha, so I'm only going to talk about the Buddha today. And I just thought to go back to the beginning, which is always a good thing to do, and pulled up this book, Buddhism for Beginners by Venerable Children. It's a fantastic book that, you know, one of those where we say, oh, I read that, so I don't need to look back. And I went back in to look at, you know, the Buddha to see what Venerable says and think about, why would we take refuge in this being? And of course, as always, she has some absolutely wonderful things to say. And she talks about 3 ways to look at the Buddha. First, the historical Buddha. And we would take refuge in this Buddha who was born and died about 2,500 years ago. Why? Because he cleansed, get this, he cleansed his own mind of all defilements and developed all of his potential. Do we know anybody around who's done this? Not many. And although we can look at many models, but we know that this being did this because he put forth a path that shows us that we can do the same thing, and it shows precisely how. So the other reason we take refuge in the Buddha, and this ties to the series of talks that were just done on trust by Venerable Children, is this is a trustworthy individual. this individual is a travel guide, and he knows exactly where we're going. He knows exactly what step, and has been through it all himself. So through the Dharma, the maps, the ways, the teachings, you begin to study them and see how precisely wonderful they are. But here's the thing, you have to experience it yourself. There's, I can sit here and tell you, Venerable Chidren can tell you, His Holiness the Dalai Lama can tell you, but until we do the practices, we study and we contemplate and we meditate, and then we bring them into our daily momentary lives, trying to work with our afflictions as they come up, apply antidotes, until we have those experiences and feel some, I guess it's building our own confidence in them because of our experience. It's like that worked. I'm facilitating one of the Sravasti Abbey Friends Education courses, and it's so wonderful to watch the people as they write back and say, I listened to that teaching by Venerable Chidren, then I tried that thing out at work and it worked. And something that has been very conflictual is much more peaceful. So once we get those, then our trust grows, both in the Buddha and the Dharma. So these other ways of looking at the Buddha, the historical Buddha, and then there's the way to think of the Buddhas as manifestations of fully enlightened minds in physical forms of various Buddhas and Buddhist deities. And the third way she talks about is about those deities. And as you look at Tibetan Buddhism, you'll see all these deities with different colors, green Tara, this kind of active compassion. So, or Manjushri with the flaming sword cutting through all the BS and ignorance in our mind. And so we can think about, yes, of course, there would be different aspects to these qualities. And what would they look like? Venerable says, what would this quality look like if it appears? Well, these are how they appeared. I'm gesturing over there because there's some beautiful little paintings of the various deities. And they have appeared to beings who have meditated deeply, and these colors and images and such, it's like the quality actually takes on a kind of a form. Why does it do that? Because we need forms. That's how we function. We're in a very form-bound world. So if it was just completely ephemeral, we wouldn't be engaged. It's like a skillful teacher is going to take someone who's kinesthetic, and they're going to have them, build with blocks, and someone who is audio, they're going to have them listen to music. So the Buddha does this too. It takes different ways of teaching us. So, so the third way to understand the Buddha is as the appearance. I love this part because it's so uplifting. The appearance of our own Buddha nature in its fully developed form. So we have this. And all we're looking at is what we can become when we're looking at Shakyamuni, when we're looking at the deities, when even we're looking at our teachers on earth. We can see them also, which is a very uplifting way to look at them, as manifestations of the Buddhist qualities. And you'll notice teachers have different ways of being. Some are much more forceful, some are very quiet and peaceful, some are this way or that way. But, we can think of those as manifestations of the enlightened mind. And I think it's very, very uplifting for us to be able to do that. So I wanted to end today because this analogy in researching on Refuge, I run into it over and over and over. Probably someone here knows what sutra it comes from, so maybe we can talk about that after this. But this idea of the Buddha as a doctor, of the Dharma as the medicine, and the Sangha as those who help us take the medicine. And then the part that's not so emphasized but is so important, and it goes back to what Geshe Sopa said about our suffering, we're the sick people. So we have to know that first. We have to first know, I need help. And I know for myself, for a long, long time, my pride, some kind of a pride and tied to ignorance, kept me from thinking that. It was like, no, I'm doing pretty well, I'm figuring it out, and I'm the one figuring it out, and I know what I'm doing, and I'm getting my life together and making it better. And of course, the house of cards. As Venerable Tarpo always says, we build it up very nicely and then whoosh, it goes. And those are the times where you go, well, maybe not. Maybe I need some help. And that's kind of the wisdom that comes forth from suffering. So I just want to, in closing, read this beautiful paragraph that comes again from this beautiful refuge prayer that Venerable Chidran has created. Just as a sick person relies on a wise doctor to prescribe medicine and on nurses to help them, I, as a person suffering from the constantly recurring ills of cyclic existence, now turn to the Buddha, a skillful doctor who prescribes the medicine of the Dharma, ethics, concentration, wisdom, altruism, and the path of Tantra. And it goes on, but it says, you know, even if you have the best doctor, medicine, and nurses, you won't be cured because you have to actually follow the advice and take the medicine. So this is what we'll keep doing and helping one another to do. So join us again. Thank you.